Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We will be getting started in just a moment. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. So welcome to Module 1 of the Fall 2024 Stormwater Management Design Review course. My name is Mnesh Patel, and I'm an environmental engineer within the Division of Watershed Protection and Restoration. I'd like to welcome you to the latest Stormwater Management Design Review course. Each module will have a moderator, and today that will be Changyi Wu. Staff will be presenting as a four-part course the key elements of the stormwater management design review process in order to assist you in complying with the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8 and as required by the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permits, or MS4 permits for short. We are presenting this course fully online via Microsoft Teams. So before I present the course agenda, however, I'd like to go over a few course rules. One, I'd like to give notice that this module and the other subsequent modules are being recorded. The videos will be posted on YouTube, and links will be included on the Stormwater Management webpage for future reference. A web link to our webpage was emailed to you in the invite, which will bring you to our PowerPoint slides of each presentation. And they'll also remain available on the webpage for some time to be reviewed and are downloaded for future reference. Two, in order to receive a certificate of completion and the certificate of the Professional Engineers Continuing Professional Competency Credits, or CPCs for short, you will need to complete all four modules, including all of the quizzes. If you don't complete all four modules in this training session, you will need to make up the missing module in the next training session before we can issue you the certificate of completion and the certificate of CPCs. After completion of all four modules, you will receive a certificate of 12 CPCs and a certificate of completion. 3, the schedule is compressed from our classroom setting, so we will move along at a brisk pace with short 1 to 2 minute breaks between the individual presentations. Although we are allowing time for questions at the end of each presentation, if you could please use the chat function for each meeting to enter your questions as we go. We will be reviewing the chat as we go along and plan to answer the more general type of questions during the presentation. However, more individualized and site-specific questions will need to be addressed offline after the class. Also, with so many people online for this training, enrollee microphones will be muted, but we can unmute if you do want to ask a question verbally. This course will focus on the current stormwater management rules. If you do have questions or comments regarding the NJ Pact rule proposal that was published in August of this year, please visit the department's NJ Pact website. The link will be posted in the chat. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, there will be an online quiz at the end of each module that you will have around 10 to 15 minutes to complete. You must take the quiz during the time allotted, and you cannot go back after that time has ended. This is in part a tracking mechanism in order to provide credit for the course. After each quiz, we will present the correct answers in our quiz review. Please try your best so that we can grade ourselves on how well we've covered the material. If you are not able to download the slides from the link in the email, they can still be accessed under this website, which will be pasted in the chat by staff. You may want to keep this open in a separate tab or a window. Here's a snapshot of what the handouts page for this edition of the class will look like. You can download slides for each presentation and each module. The links are embedded in each blue box. Just click the box that matches which presentation you want to view. And now, this brings us to our agenda for the course. The agenda for Module 1 begins with Shashi Nayak, who will provide the introduction and federal background. Peter Plianthos will then present the stormwater overview of basic concepts and terms. You'll then hear from me on maintenance requirements, and then Lisa Schaefer will present on the definitions added to the stormwater management rules with the adoption on July 17th of 2023, along with the applicability section from the amended rules. Each of the modules includes a quiz to be taken online during the time allotted. We will then close the quiz and review the quiz questions. We'll be providing links and QR codes to the quizzes in the chat and on the slides. It is suggested to use your cell phone camera focusing on the QR code that will be shown on the screen, and that will take you to the quiz on SurveyMonkey. If you're going to take the quiz on your computer, be sure to open the quiz link in a new window or tab so that you will also remain in teams. Module 2 for Thursday will start with Anthony Roblick, who will present the stormwater calculations. Lisa Schaefer will then present the soils testing criteria that was previously published as Appendix E of the BMP manual and is now incorporated as Chapter 12 of the BMP manual. And our last speaker for Module 12 will be Dick McGee from NJCAT, who will present information pertaining to MTDs. Module 3 for Tuesday, October 22nd, we will start with Anthony and I presenting how to review a project number 1. And then Cheng-Yi Wu will be presenting part 2 of how to review a project. And then Peter will be presenting the groundwater mounding analysis as per Chapter 13, along with some examples. Then we'll have quiz 3, and if time permits, we will briefly cover some of the common issues we have seen in designs. If we do run out of time, we will provide those slides for reference. And then lastly, Module 4 will take place on October 24th. The first presentation covers green infrastructure and how to evaluate GIBMPs from some design examples. There will be a second example presentation, and after that, a comprehensive plan review example, followed by quiz 4. Then we will have an overview of the municipal stormwater program, followed by the updates made to the BMP manual and stormwater webpage, plus the training and related information to close out the training. One very important reminder before we start: after the class is over, we will be emailing out a link to an evaluation survey only to those who have completed all 4 modules, including all of the quizzes. We are required to collect an evaluation in order to issue continuing education credits. Only after you submit your evaluation survey, you will be sent your certificate of completion and or PE credits once staff creates them. That should hopefully occur a couple weeks after the class has finished. With that being said, we will start with the introductory history lesson and basics of the permits, which are including based on feedback we received from our permittees during the MS4 audits. So please stand by while we switch over to Shashi.
Okay, thank you, Manish. Let me just make a smooth transition here. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Stormwater Management Training course. My name is Shashi, and today I will be providing you with a brief history of the federal basis for the Municipal Stormwater Regulation Program, as well as a brief introduction to some of the permit requirements that you will hear more about throughout the training. Please save your questions for the end of this section. You can type your questions into the chat box. Shown here are some of the terms we frequently use in our program. This presentation will provide an overview of the history of these words and how they are part of the stormwater program. To start, we will have to take a look back to about 75 years ago. The Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1948, also known as the FWPCA, cleared the way as it was the first major U.S. law to address water pollution, and it authorized the Surgeon General to prepare comprehensive programs for reducing the pollution of interstate waters. It also authorized the Federal Works Administrator to prevent discharges of inadequately treated sewage and other wastes into interstate waters and tributaries. This is because over the years, our rivers had become increasingly more polluted with oil, sewage, debris, and chemicals. Now, let's fast forward about 20 years later to Cleveland, Ohio. The Cuyahoga River runs north through the heart of Cleveland towards Lake Erie and was a historical shipping route. At the time, Cleveland was emerging as a major center for manufacturing, and because of this, the river became heavily affected by industrial pollution to the point that it was covered with oil and debris. On June 22nd, 1969, sparks from a passing train were all it took to start a fire. It was reported that these flames reached up to 5 stories in height. This was not the first time it happened, as there were more than a dozen fires over the preceding years. However, this was the event that sparked people's attention. A few months later, the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, was signed into law on January 1st, 1970, creating the EPA. In 1972, amendments were made to the Federal Water Pollution Control Act from 1948, with the resulting legislation becoming known as the Clean Water Act. It's in Section 402 of this document in which the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NIPDES, program was created, which prohibits discharges of pollutants from any point source into the nation's waters, except as allowed under a NIPDES permit. Because of this program, the EPA is authorized to regulate discharges into the nation's waters by setting limits on the effluent that can be introduced into a body of water from an operating and permitted facility. NIPDES also established the requirements for what a state must do to obtain approval to implement and operate its own program. New Jersey received federal authorization to implement various NIPDES program components in 1982, including authorizations for a state free treatment program to regulate federal facilities and issue general permits. This program is known today as NJIPDES. This is the framework through which the NJDEP regulates the discharge of pollutants to the surface and groundwaters for the entire state. 1 year later, in 1983, New Jersey proposed and published a new rule establishing certain effluent limitations for discharges to surface waters of the state and for indirect discharges into domestic treatment works, including discharges resulting from different precipitation events. 4 years later, the Water Quality Act was passed, which called for increased monitoring and assessment of water bodies to ensure that water quality standards were being achieved. In November of 1990, the EPA published initial permit application requirements for certain categories of stormwater discharges, which was called Phase 1. Nearly a decade later, Phase 2 provisions were published that initiated stormwater management requirements for municipalities, public complexes such as large public colleges, prisons, hospital complexes, and military bases, and highway agencies such as county, state, interstate, or federal government agencies that operate highways and other thoroughfares. If you wanted to look these up online, you would find the NIPDES regulations published in Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations in parts 122 through 124. These provisions cover basic EPA permitting requirements and created a mandate for these entities to develop and implement a program to reduce discharges of pollutants from their respective stormwater systems. These systems are referred to as Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems, or MS4s for short. Also cover are combined sewer overflows, where commingled stormwater and wastewater are discharged, and industrial stormwater discharges, where stormwater in contact with industrial pollutants is discharged, each with their own separate set of regulations. The portion of the NEGIPTIS rules pertaining to the Municipal Stormwater Regulation Program are found in Subchapter 25 at NJAC 7:14A. In February of 2004, the rules were amended, establishing the Tier A and the Tier B designations for all 557 municipalities in the state of New Jersey that have MS4s. The majority of municipalities were designated under Tier A, which was generally for the more densely populated municipalities, while the rest were designated as Tier B. The most recent permit renewal became effective on January 1st of 2023. As of July of 2022, all Tier B municipalities were reassigned to Tier A and are now regulated under the 2023 Tier A permit. The Public Complex Municipal Stormwater General Permit authorizes discharges from small MS4s that are owned or operated by a county, state, interstate, or federal agency at a public complex located entirely or partially in a municipality that is assigned to Tier A under NJAC 7:14A-25.3A1, or in a municipality that receives a waiver under NJAC 7:14A-25.2D. The Highway Agency Municipal Stormwater General Permit authorizes discharges from small MS4s that are owned or operated by a county, state, interstate, or federal agency at a highway or other thoroughfare, including a maintenance or service facility or rest area for such thoroughfare under NJAC 7:14A-25.2A3. The federal program requires that the MS4 stormwater program includes the 6 minimum control measures. The New Jersey MS4 permits require the same things, except they are called the minimum standards and are found in Part 4, Sections B through G in your permit. The 6 minimum control measures cover 1. Public involvement and participation, including requirements for public notice. 2. Local public education and outreach, which can include labeling storm drains, training on building rain barrels, and other measures to increase public awareness on pollution prevention. Number 3, construction site stormwater runoff, which requires construction activities to be authorized under this Industrial 5D3 construction activity permit. The list is continued on the next slide. Number 4, post-construction stormwater management in new development and redevelopment, which requires the permittee to develop, update, implement, and enforce a program to address stormwater runoff. This includes necessary plans and ordinances in keeping with the requirements of the stormwater management rules, which will be discussed further in more detail. 5. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping, which includes community-wide ordinances, community-wide pollution prevention measures, best management practices at maintenance yards and ancillary operations, and stormwater training requirements. 6. MS4 mapping and scouring, and illicit discharge detection and elimination, which includes mapping MS4 infrastructure stormwater features, controlling localized stream scouring, and tracking down and eliminating illicit discharges of pollutants. These will be discussed later in the training. In addition to ensuring compliance with all the minimum standards in Part 4, Sections B through G of the permit, the MS4 permit requires the permittee to incorporate into its stormwater management program any requirements for additional measures that are identified by the state as required for permittee, and optional measures such as BMPs that extend beyond the requirements of the permit to further prevent or reduce pollution to state waters. For more details on these measures, you can take a look at the permit in Part 4, Section I. Now, let's take a look at the fourth minimum standard, introduced a few slides ago, requiring the permittee to develop, update, implement, and enforce a stormwater management program. The purpose of the stormwater management program is to address the negative impacts caused by development, some of which are listed on the slide and will be covered in more detail in the next presentation. Those requirements are also what designers must follow for projects over a certain threshold in size. To be clear, federal regulations require that these impacts be addressed. New Jersey is authorized to issue permits with the same requirements. Therefore, the responsibility to review the projects under its stormwater management program falls directly on the permittee, who must ensure that these impacts are adequately reduced. The required post-construction stormwater management program must include certain elements. Let's take a look at what these requirements are. Each of the elements required as part of the post-construction program are represented by a box on the slide. The top level contains elements that are already in place for existing Tier A municipalities. The first box is the Municipal Stormwater Management Plan, or MSWMP. Under the NJAC 7:8 Stormwater Management Rules, every municipality is required to have a plan. More details of the elements in that plan are specified in subchapter 4 of 7:8. The second box is the required Stormwater Control Ordinance, or SCO. Tier A permittees had 1 year from their plan adoption date to adopt an SCO and submit all of this to the County Review Agency for approval. The Stormwater Management Rule amendments adopted on March 2nd, 2020 had a delayed operative date of 1 year so that the municipalities could update the SCOs to match the rule amendments by March 2021. In the case of the most recent 7:8 amendments adopted on July 17th of 2023, the municipalities had 1 year to adopt and make effective an SCO that is in accordance with those same rule amendments by July 2024. An SCO must meet the requirements of the Stormwater Management Rule as found in subchapters 4, 5, and 6. The department even created a model SCO for the municipalities to use as a template. Let's take a look at what is in that model. The SCO must include the design and performance standards for stormwater management measures found in subchapter 5 of 7:8. These standards will be covered throughout the rest of this training, and they include the requirement to use green infrastructure to meet the design and performance standards, which replaced the implementation of the 9 non-structural strategies. How compliance with the groundwater recharge requirement is demonstrated. How stormwater runoff quantity control may be addressed. How water quality is to be addressed, and the rainfall distribution for the New Jersey Water Quality Design Storm. The calculation method to be used to calculate stormwater runoff and groundwater recharge, and the detailed maintenance requirements. The SCO also addresses the safety standards in subchapter 6. All reviewers must follow the SCO, whether the municipality chose to modify the model or create something on its own. The SCO can be stricter than the model, but it cannot be less stringent. If you are a municipal consultant, you must know what is in the SCO of each town for which you review projects. The last citation in the SCO box is NJAC 5:21-7, which is a part of the Residential Site Improvement Standards, or RSIS, pertaining to stormwater management for residential development. The permit states that RSIS applies to all areas of the Tier A municipalities. Now, let's look at the lower tier of boxes on this slide. The municipality must enforce their own SCO, review applications for compliance with their own SCO, ensure long-term operation of BMPs, and must make sure required maintenance is performed, which for municipalities also includes privately owned facilities. The last box also applies to public complexes and highway agencies, and the requirements in these boxes have been previously in place. Now, creating the plan is not a one and done scenario, as the plan must be updated periodically, which will start the cycle over again. At the bottom of the slide, you will see it says audit by NJDEP. In 2016, the MS4 permitting program began performing compliance assistance audits of municipalities to determine how well they were demonstrating compliance with their permit and where they needed help, whether it's with language in the SCO, following the SCO, or other permit requirements. We are now partnering with enforcement in our audits. And what this means is that the department can issue a notice of violation for an instance of non-compliance with the permit requirements. If you're not following all of the MS4 permit requirements, it can lead to an enforcement action by NJDEP. Even if a major development project was previously constructed, it still may not fully comply with the SCO if the reviewer did not conduct a proper review, and the municipality can be issued a penalty with a notice of violation for failure to comply with the post-construction program. EPA can conduct inspections as well. These also have historically been an in-depth and lengthy process, and that can result in sizable fines and penalties levied against a permittee in accordance with the Clean Water Act. In fact, some of the past penalties range from 4 figures to millions of dollars, depending on the type of violation. The department would like to prevent this from happening. The training is designed to show reviewers how to review a project so that the permittee stays in compliance with the permit. This means the permittee has the authority to ask applicants for revisions in order to enforce and follow its program, as well as the permit and the rules. To summarize, we're here for reasons dating back to the Clean Water Act. The NIPTES program authorized New Jersey to implement the stormwater permitting program for its municipalities, public complexes, and highway agencies. The NIPTES rules detail what must be done at the local level to eliminate the discharge of pollutants from an MS4 and implement the required post-construction stormwater management program. Under the respective permit, the post-construction minimum standard requires municipalities to develop, implement, update, and enforce its SCO and ensure that long-term maintenance is being performed, with parts of this also applying to public complexes. Lastly, highway agencies are required to follow the stormwater management rules for major development projects. This course is a requirement of the MS4 permits, and all reviewers need to complete the training once every 5 years. Thank you for your attention during this brief overview. Should you wish to contact the MS4 permitting group with permit-related questions, the email address is listed on the slide. Before we wrap up this portion of the presentation, should you have any questions, please use the raise your hand feature if you want to speak, or type your questions into the chat box. Okay, up next is Peter. He will discuss the basics of stormwater runoff, the impacts of development, and the rule requirements to mitigate these impacts. Please stand by while I hand over control to Peter.
All right, hello everyone. I will share my screen now. All right, good afternoon. My name is Peter Pliantos, and in this presentation, I'll be providing you with a basic understanding of what stormwater is, its interactions with the terrain, and a brief look at the stormwater control measures in place through the Stormwater Management Rule. This presentation is organized into 3 parts. The first part discusses the hydrologic cycle and what impacts land development has on it. Second, we'll introduce some terms relevant to managing stormwater runoff. And the third part will discuss the standards found in the Stormwater Management Rule, NJAC 7:8, to mitigate some of the adverse effects land development has on the hydrologic cycle. We'll begin with land development's impacts on the hydrologic cycle. Since stormwater is the focus of this presentation, let's define it up front. Stormwater is water resulting from precipitation, including rain and snow, that runs off the land surface, is transmitted to the subsurface, or is captured by separate storm sewers or other sewage or drainage facilities, or conveyed by snow removal equipment. So now that we've defined stormwater and what produces it, we'll move on to what can control it. That is, the conditions that increase or reduce runoff. Listed here are some basic site conditions that act as a type of control on stormwater. In many cases, the first point of contact for stormwater is vegetation. Dense vegetation scatters precipitation, making it less likely to coalesce and flow. Rough surfaces also inhibit flow. Steep slopes will have an opposite effect and will increase the velocity of flow. Lastly, the surface material itself and even the underlying layers can affect the amount of runoff produced by a site. Pavement will produce a greater volume of runoff than a grassy field, for example. Next, we'll look a little deeper into the effects each one of these site conditions has on rainfall. Beginning with vegetation. When it rains on a tree, the precipitation falls through the leaves and branches, runs along branches and stems or trunks, and then contacts any other shrubs, bushes, and leaf litter lying on the ground. Some of the moisture that penetrates to the soil can then be taken up through the roots of the plants. The leaves of the plants can also absorb moisture. And release of moisture back to the atmosphere then occurs in a process called evapotranspiration. Next, we'll take a look at soils. The properties of the underlying soils can contribute to stormwater runoff. Movement of water into the pores or voids of soil is called infiltration. The rate of infiltration can vary with soil composition, and for soils comprised predominantly of clay can be almost zero, while as for sands, the rate can be 10 inches per hour or more. When the voids become full of water, the soil becomes saturated. Saturated soils cannot absorb any more water, so there is more runoff. Many of the stormwater practices used on developments are designed based on the assumption the soil is fully saturated, so we can best predict the amount of runoff produced and manage it safely. The condition of surface roughness has an effect on the velocity of stormwater as it flows, with higher surface roughness impeding the velocity. The actual topography also has an effect on the movement of stormwater. Steep slopes shed runoff more quickly than those that are more gradual, and uneven terrain provides opportunities for surface detention and the slowing down of stormwater runoff, as illustrated in this graphic. Putting what we have covered together, we can then discuss the hydrologic cycle. For an undeveloped site, a large portion of the precipitation, represented by the largest arrow on the graphic, supports vegetation, resulting in evapotranspiration or infiltration, which maintains groundwater flow. Typically, there is little runoff, and it flows overland to a water body. An equivalent volume of precipitation as to that received by the undeveloped site falls onto the same site post-development. Since the site has considerably more impervious ground coverage as compared to before, there is much less infiltration, and therefore depletion of groundwater base flow, as well as slightly less water returning to the atmosphere via evapotranspiration. The site also has a stormwater collection system that discharges to the water body. The insides of stormwater pipes are much smoother than vegetated surfaces, so the higher volume of collected runoff reaches the water body more quickly, potentially causing downstream flooding. Higher rates of runoff can also mean increased erosion and transport of sediment. Development can also cause higher levels of nutrients, like pet waste and fertilizers, pollutants such as vehicle exhaust compounds, pesticides, and industrial chemicals, and heavy metals like copper from brake dust. So, in summary, the three primary impacts land development has on stormwater and the hydrologic cycle as a whole are: 1. Increasing the volume and rate of stormwater runoff through an increase in impervious areas with lower roughness coefficients. 2. Degrading the quality of downstream water bodies through increased suspended solid concentrations and increased nutrient loadings. And 3. Depleting groundwater and stream base flow, which is also due to increased impervious ground coverage. Now we'll move on to the second part of this presentation, where we will define some terms relevant to the Stormwater Management Rule and introduce some basic related information. We'll begin with defining each of the terms on this slide. First is green infrastructure. The Stormwater Management Rules, adopted March 2nd, 2020, included the requirement to use green infrastructure. This is the definition of green infrastructure as noted under Section 1.2 of the rules. Part of this definition specifies that green infrastructure manages stormwater close to its source, which plays an important part in the Stormwater Management Rule. Along with the stormwater management measure being located close to the source of runoff it's designed to receive, green infrastructure must treat the stormwater runoff or store it for reuse. The rules define motor vehicles and surfaces on which they are operated as they contribute to pollutants and stormwater runoff. Motor vehicle surface means any pervious or impervious surface that is intended to be used by motor vehicles and/or aircraft and is directly exposed to precipitation, including but not limited to driveways, parking areas, parking garages, roads, racetracks, and runways. And in the next slide, we'll define just exactly what is considered a motor vehicle. Motor vehicle means land vehicles propelled other than by muscular power, such as automobiles, motorcycles, autocycles, and low-speed vehicles. For the purposes of this definition, motor vehicle does not include farm equipment, snowmobiles, all-terrain vehicles, motorized wheelchairs, go-karts, gas buggies, golf carts, ski slope grooming machines, or vehicles that run only on rails or tracks. Building on the definitions from the previous two slides, a regulated motor vehicle surface means any of the following, alone or in combination. 1, a net increase in motor vehicle surface, and/or 2, the total area of motor vehicle surface that is currently receiving water quality treatment, either by vegetation or soil, by an existing stormwater management measure, or by treatment at a wastewater treatment plant, where the water quality treatment will be modified or removed. And just to note, areas that are only for emergency use and are regularly gated from motor vehicle traffic may be excluded from a site's total regulated motor vehicle surface. A regulated impervious surface means any of the following, alone or in combination. 1, a net increase of impervious surface. 2, the total area of impervious surface collected by a new stormwater conveyance system. 3, the total area of impervious surface proposed to be newly collected by an existing stormwater conveyance system. And/or 4, the total area of impervious surface collected by an existing stormwater conveyance system where the capacity of that conveyance system is increased. And note that for the purpose of this definition, a new stormwater conveyance system is a stormwater conveyance system that is constructed where one did not exist immediately prior to its construction, or an existing system for which a new discharge location is created. This now all comes into play with the next slide, which is the definition of major development. The rules adopted in 2020 incorporated into the definition of major development the time frame within which the cumulative impacts of a development must be considered when determining if the current development will qualify as a major development, subject to the requirements of the rules. Additionally, the key terms that affect the classification of major development are disturbance, impervious cover, and motor vehicle surface. The definition reflects that the department considers the cumulative total of a number of items as contributing to what makes a major development. Those items are disturbance and creation of regulated impervious surface since February 2nd, 2004, and creation of regulated motor vehicle surface since March 2nd, 2021. This is done without double counting overlapping regulated motor vehicle and regulated impervious areas. However, for the purposes of a municipal stormwater management plan and stormwater control ordinance, major development is limited to projects that ultimately disturb 1 or more acres of land. The municipality may adopt a more stringent definition of major development to align with the definition in NJAC 7:8 1.2. All right, so just wanted to take a minute to emphasize the situation where a large lot is subdivided into several smaller individual lots, each less than 1 acre, and each sold and built upon separately. As the definition of development in the Stormwater Management Rules states, subdivision in and of itself is a development. If the disturbance, the increase in regulated motor vehicle surface, or the increase in impervious surface of each individual lot summed together meet the threshold of a major development, the subdivision itself is considered a major development, with each individual lot being subject to the requirements of a major development. The municipality or MS4 permittee must review the proposed development for those subdivided lots as a whole. Here are some additional terms relevant to understanding the design and performance standards. Infiltration is the permeation of stormwater into the soil by filtration. Groundwater recharge is precipitation that infiltrates into the soil and is not evapotranspired. A hydrograph in the context of stormwater runoff analysis is the graph depicting the flow of runoff versus the time passed at a specific point of analysis. And then design storms, which will be covered further on the next few slides, are theoretical storm events based on precipitation data with an average recurrence interval of 2, 10, and 100 years. So let's talk a little about design storms. Through a frequency analysis of rainfall depths and intensities from past precipitation events, the likelihood of a storm occurrence can be determined using probability analysis. However, a precipitation event being referred to as the X-year storm does not mean that this storm can only happen once every X number of years, nor does it preclude a larger storm event from also occurring that year. This table lists the probability of a particular storm occurrence and its corresponding chance of happening, expressed as a percentage in a single year. This is what is meant by the 2, 10, and 100-year design storms. The top storm listed in this table is the storm with a 1% chance of occurring in a given year. This is the 100-year storm. At the bottom of the table is the 2-year storm, meaning it has a 50% chance of happening in a given year. Now that we understand the likelihood of a design storm event occurring, keep in mind that one thing we do have is lots of data for these storms. County rainfall data is one source used in the calculations. The link for this data is shown in the header. When reviewing for a municipality, it's best to check the SCO to see if this data is used. However, this is only one of the sources allowed under the rules. The preferred choice for storm data can be found on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, National Weather Service, or NWS website. Click on New Jersey on the map to get started. I won't go through all the steps here. Instead, do read Chapter 5 of the New Jersey Best Management Practices Manual, which has the step-by-step directions and additional graphics. The Stormwater Management Rules, adopted on July 17, 2023, includes some updates to the rainfall data used in stormwater runoff calculations. Studies by the Northeast Regional Climate Center and the DEP show that the 2, 10, and 100-year design storms for most counties have experienced increases in rainfall depth since 1999, when the original NOAA rainfall data was collected. So, current precipitation adjustment factors and future precipitation change factors have been implemented and are applied to the 2, 10, and 100-year design storms in certain circumstances. The current precipitation adjustment factors, found in Table 5-5 of the rules, adjust the outdated rainfall data from 1999 to reflect what we are experiencing today. For example, the precipitation depth for the 10-year design storm for Hudson County, retrieved from the NOAA NWS website, should be multiplied by 1.05 to get the current 10-year design storm precipitation depth. The rainfall data applied with the current precipitation adjustment factors will be the current storm events in the rules requiring stormwater runoff calculations. The future precipitation change factors, found in Table 5-6 of the rules, update the rainfall data from 1999 to projected levels for the period between 2050 and 2099. For example, the precipitation depth for the 100-year design storm for Burlington County, retrieved from the NOAA NWS website, should be multiplied by 1.32 to get the projected 100-year design storm precipitation depth. The rainfall data applied with the future precipitation change factors will be the projected storm events and the rules regarding stormwater runoff calculations. The current and projected storm events will be mentioned several times throughout this presentation, so keep an eye out as we move on to the next section. In the last part of this presentation, we'll take a look at the design and performance standards in place to address the adverse impacts of land development that we discussed previously. These standards are found in the Stormwater Management Rule, Title 7, Chapter 8, or 7:8. As a reminder, here is an overview of those adverse effects of development previously discussed. Under the current rule, there is a requirement to mitigate these adverse impacts using green infrastructure, which acts to reproduce as closely as possible the natural hydrologic cycle, but more on that requirement later. We will now address how we mitigate these effects in turn, beginning with the runoff quantity control standards in place to address the increase in volume and rate of stormwater runoff. There are 3 runoff quantity control options. The full text of the first can be seen here. Note that the water droplet is the icon used in the BMP manual for this design and performance standard. In order to meet this quantity control option for a given design storm event, the post-construction runoff hydrographs for the current and projected 2, 10, and 100-year storm events must be bounded by and not cross at any point in time the pre-construction runoff hydrographs for these same storm events. As mentioned earlier, the current 2, 10, and 100-year storm events are the rainfall data from NOAA applied with the current precipitation adjustment factors. And the projected 2, 10, and 100-year storm events are the rainfall data from NOAA applied with the future precipitation change factors. An example scenario that meets this standard can be seen here, where the post-construction runoff hydrograph, shown here in gray, is contained entirely within the bounds of the pre-construction runoff hydrograph, shown in teal. And an example scenario that does not meet the standard can be seen here, where a shift in timing results in the post-construction hydrograph exceeding the bounds defined by the pre-construction hydrograph. The second runoff quantity control option, seen here, is unlike the last quantity control option in that this option is a comparison of the current and projected peak flow rates for the pre- and post-construction hydrographs, and not a comparison over the entire hydrograph duration. However, the analysis required to meet this option is much broader in scope and more detailed than the analysis that is required to meet the previous option or the next option, as we'll see shortly. The analysis needed here must demonstrate that no flooding will occur at or downstream of the site. This has to assume full development under existing zoning in the drainage area. That extends beyond the site, both upstream and downstream, within the HUC 14 area. Because of how detailed the analysis required is, this is the least chosen option to meet the runoff quantity control standard. The third runoff quantity control option, shown here, is similar to option 2 in that it is a comparison of the current and projected peak runoff rates for the pre- and post-construction hydrographs. But unlike option 2, the analysis required is less detailed because post-construction peak runoff rates for the 2, 10, and 100-year storm events are limited to 50, 75, and 80% respectively of the pre-construction peak runoff rates. This rate reduction is sufficient to demonstrate runoff quantity control, and the offsite analysis as required in option 2 isn't needed. This is the option we see chosen most of the time. So there is an exemption from the quantity control standard. If stormwater runoff from a project discharges within a tidal flood hazard area, and it's clear that the increased volume of stormwater runoff will not lead to downstream flooding, then the site would be exempt from the runoff quantity control requirement. But it must be demonstrated that no downstream flooding would occur. Now we'll move on to the runoff quantity, water quality standards in place, water quality. When a development proposes a quarter acre or more of regulated motor vehicle surface, stormwater management measures for water quality control are required. Why is that? Developed sites typically do not have the surface roughness to slow down runoff. This means there generally is not enough time for any pollutants to settle out, resulting in direct discharge to water bodies. The stormwater rule includes design and performance standards for water quality best management practices, or BMPs. And the rules focus on 2 pollutants, total suspended solids, or TSS, and nutrients. TSS includes sediment and other pollutants that can be removed from stormwater through filtration. This is important because high TSS levels impair water bodies. Nutrients are generally a result of fertilizers and animal waste. The 2 nutrients of concern are phosphorus and nitrogen because they overstimulate plant growth in aquatic environments, which results in algal blooms and a reduction in dissolved oxygen concentration in water. The current rule requires a developed site's stormwater runoff to be treated to 80% TSS reduction and the removal of nutrients to the maximum extent feasible. Also, just to note that the trigger for water quality control in 7:8 is a quarter acre of regulated motor vehicle surface, but local SEOs may have a stricter measure as was mentioned in the last presentation. So definitely check the local SEO. In order to meet the 80% TSS removal requirement, stormwater runoff for the water quality design storm must be treated through the use of BMPs. The water quality design storm is a storm event with a custom rainfall intensity distribution that results in a total rainfall depth of 1.25 inches in 2 hours. The custom distribution can be found in the Stormwater Management Rule 7:8. The gold percent sign is the icon used in the BMP manual for this design and performance standard. Some BMPs remove more TSS than others, so that each type may have its own value or even a range of TSS removal. The percentage identified in the manual is only awarded to BMPs designed and constructed in accordance with the information in the manual. Also,
I
if a
don't see any of the
BMP is
videos
not
he's
properly
talking about.
maintained, if a BMP is not properly maintained, its ability to provide water quality treatment may be impaired. There is also an exemption from the quality control standard. The requirement to reduce TSS does not apply to any stormwater runoff in a discharge regulated under a numeric effluent limitation for TSS imposed under the NJPD's rules. If there is a separate NJPD's permit, it has to cover the same area and the same runoff flow that would have been subject to the runoff quality standard. Now we'll move on to the third set of standards in place, which address the reduction in groundwater due to development. Earlier, we defined groundwater recharge as that portion of runoff that travels down past the root zone of plants. The Stormwater Rule provides two options for development. The full text of option 1 is posted here. To meet this option, a development must match the existing annual volume infiltrated on the pre-developed site. This option requires careful analysis, and unfortunately, we still see a lot of mistakes in the analyses performed or in the local review of calculations. The second option requires the designer calculate the increased runoff volume that will be produced by the development from the projected 2-year storm and infiltrate that amount. This generally requires a lot of stormwater be infiltrated, and this may not be easy to do if the project is going from a lot of vegetation to a lot of impervious cover, particularly if the soil was very well drained to start. The projected 2-year storm event is the rainfall data for the 2-year storm from NOAA applied with the future precipitation change factor for the 2-year storm. Additionally, the brown shield is the icon used in the BMP manual for this design and performance standard. There is an exemption from the groundwater recharge requirement that is applicable to only previously developed portions within an urban redevelopment area. Previously developed is defined as areas devoid of woody vegetation, and for an area where woody vegetation has newly taken root, it's no longer considered developed. Just to note, we see a lot of compliance issues regarding the groundwater recharge standards, mainly due to improper soil testing, but that will be elaborated upon in a later presentation. The rules require that green infrastructure, or GI, BMPs be used to address the requirements for groundwater recharge, stormwater runoff quantity control, and stormwater runoff quality. Subsection 5.2 of the rules includes 3 tables listing BMPs and how they may be used to meet the design and performance standards. Since GI must be located close to the source of runoff, small-scale GI BMPs require limitations on the contributory drainage area. As noted in the last bullet on this slide, municipalities may approve alternative designs, but they must match the GI definition and follow other applicable limitations. Each of the tables identify columns indicating whether a BMP may be used to address runoff quality, quantity control, or groundwater recharge. Note that the fill color in each of the tables corresponds to the color of the title text in the BMP manual. Table 5-1 is green, corresponding with Chapter 9 of the BMP manual. Table 5-2 is blue, corresponding with Chapter 10. And Table 5-3 is black and gray, corresponding with Chapter 11. The last column is the separation required from the seasonal high water table, assuming the soil testing procedures in Chapter 12 of the BMP manual have been followed correctly. Note that Chapter 12 was formerly Appendix E in the BMP manual. Table 5-1 lists GI-BMPs that may be used to meet the groundwater recharge, stormwater runoff quantity control, and stormwater runoff water quality design and performance standards, provided that the GI-BMP is designed in accordance with the BMP manual. Some of the GI-BMPs cannot receive runoff from motor vehicle surfaces and therefore do not address water quality, like cisterns and green roofs. Others do not attenuate the discharge of stormwater runoff from the 2, 10, and 100-year design storms, so they cannot meet the quantity control requirement, like dry wells. And there are certain MTDs with a vegetative or soil component that meet the GI definition, but not all MTDs are GI. A listing of MTDs that meet the definition of GI are NJCAT verified and certified by the department can be found on our website. Lastly, these systems are typically smaller in scale, and dry wells, GI MTDs, pervious paving systems, small-scale bioretention systems, small-scale sand filters, and small-scale infiltration basins all have a limited contributory drainage area that they can treat, as defined in NJAC 7:8 5.3b. BMPs in Table 5-2 can be used to address stormwater runoff quantity control. These can have drainage areas that are larger than the drainage areas of BMPs listed in Table 5-1. These BMPs may be used to meet water quality and recharge only if a waiver or variance is granted from NJAC 7:8 5.3. BMPs in Table 5-3 always require a waiver or variance from NJAC 7:8 5.3 before they can be used to meet any of the design and performance standards. It is not anticipated that these BMPs will be used much in the future because of what is required in order to grant a waiver or approve a variance. As for some of the BMPs noted on this table, blue roofs don't have a reuse component, and extended detention basins are typically larger and also require additional treatment to meet water quality standards. The majority of manufactured treatment devices, or MTDs, currently do not have a soil or vegetative component, so they fall into this table. And subsurface gravel wetlands and wet ponds not designed with beneficial reuse are also listed on this table. The regulations under subsection 5.2F specify that BMPs designed in accordance with the BMP manual are presumed capable of providing treatment necessary to meet the design and performance standards under the rules. However, anything that is not designed in accordance with the BMP manual is considered an alternative design. As with all major development projects, these alternative designs must be reviewed by the review agency, and in these cases, the DEP must be notified of the review agency's approval of the alternative design. The BMP manual is always updated to align with the current rule. Shown here is a snip from our BMP manual webpage, listing out the chapters for specific BMPs. The BMPs listed under these chapters correspond to the BMPs listed in the tables under subsection 5.2 of the rule, with BMPs from chapters 9, 10, and 11 corresponding with BMPs from tables 5-1, 5-2, and 5-3 respectively. Next, we'll take a look at an example cover page from a BMP chapter. As we said, Chapter 9 contains all of the GI BMPs listed in Table 5-1. Shown here is the cover page from Chapter 9.8, which is for small-scale infiltration basins, and it's a typical example of the chapters for the various BMPs listed in subsection 5.3 of the rules. At the top of the page is an introductory statement that provides an overview of how the BMP addresses pollutant removal and the rate at which it removes total suspended solids, or TSS, from stormwater runoff. The first table on the page is also an overview, and it identifies the design and performance standards of the rules for which the BMP can or cannot be used. This is where you see the icons we discussed earlier for each of the design and performance standards. If you are not familiar with the BMP, this is a good place to become acquainted with how the BMP complies with the rule requirements. In this case, the small-scale infiltration basin, when designed in accordance with all of the design criteria in the chapter, is approved as a GI BMP. It can be used to address stormwater runoff quantity control when designed as an online system. It can be used to meet the groundwater recharge requirement, and it has a TSS removal rate of 80%. The other tables below this first table, although not shown here, provide additional design criteria explained in the chapter. In summary, in the first part of this presentation, we covered some of the adverse effects land development has on the hydrologic cycle, including 1, increasing the rate and volume of stormwater runoff, 2, degrading the quality of downstream water bodies, and 3, depleting groundwater. In the final part of this presentation, we briefly covered the design and performance standards in place to mitigate some of the adverse effects of land development. Standards such as the 3 water quantity control options, the water quality requirement to remove 80% of the total suspended solids and nutrients to the maximum extent feasible, the 2 groundwater recharge options, and the requirement to meet those 3 standards using green infrastructure. All right, I want to thank everyone for your attendance. Should you wish to contact me, here is my information. And I'll check with our moderator, Chang-Yi, to see if we want to address any questions.
I will answer it in chat. So I think we can have a 10 minutes break. So we will come back around 2:29, 2:30. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, we will resume our presentations here with the maintenance presentation. So far, we have covered the history of stormwater regulations and the basics of the MS4 permit. You do recall, though, from earlier, the slide with the 5 post-construction stormwater management program requirements. One of them is to ensure the long-term operation and maintenance of BMPs. So let's get into that a little bit more. First, we'll look at why maintenance is so important. Second, we will take a look at the historical background for the responsibility of ensuring maintenance. Then we will get into the responsibilities of the Tier A municipality, public complex, or the highway agency. And finally, we will go over what should be in the maintenance plan and how it should be reviewed. BMPs are pollutant removal mechanisms, as you know, and if they stop working according to their design, or if they even fail, there can be serious consequences that impact the environment. Since BMPs are designed to remove trash, debris, and sediment, they can often get clogged if maintenance is not performed. That means the drain time of a parking lot, for example, or whatever else is upstream may be even longer, which can cause flooding. It can also mean a basin takes longer to drain, which can lead to a possible creation of a mosquito breeding ground. Plus, they can attract unwanted wildlife or can even lead to complaints from the public. All of this is stuff we really want to avoid. Here are a couple examples of poorly maintained BMPs. The top image here has trash and vegetation collecting in it. So when another storm occurs, particulates will be transported downstream. If you take a look at the bottom picture, the lawn depression, it's not really draining properly here. This inundation could result in bare soil areas and wind erosion when it dries. If it doesn't drain, then algae could become established, and this could prevent, say, an infiltration basin from draining. Here are a couple examples of properly maintained BMPs. The top picture is of a rain garden, and the bottom picture is a green roof. Both are well maintained and clear of any debris and trash. There's no visible signs of improper drainage that would compromise the BMP's functionality. So these are just some nice examples of maintenance here. So here's a question for all of you. Based on what you see here alone from the same site, does this look like a ponded infiltration basin or a constructed wetland? Well, if you do visit the site, you wouldn't really know without knowing what the designs are, and you might think everything is okay. However, we have seen the plans, and this was actually approved as an infiltration basin. Now, based on the presence of the wetland vegetation and the standing water, the right type of maintenance was obviously not performed, and it became what you see now. At this point, the basin would need repairs, or maybe it would even need retrofitting. When BMPs are improperly maintained or neglected, the consequences can include water quality impairment, potential flooding issues, failing embankments, or the potential for safety concerns, erosion, health issues that could occur from, for example, mosquitoes, like I said earlier, or even financial impacts such as decreased property value. They can become a headache for a permittee, which is why proper maintenance needs to be performed. So now let's take a look at the historical background for performing maintenance. The responsibility to perform maintenance is not a new requirement, as you can see from the 1990 Stormwater Control Ordinance model. The ordinance is designed to comply with the maintenance requirements in the stormwater management rules. An intent of this was to establish responsibility for continued maintenance, repair, and safety of stormwater management facilities before they're even constructed. The model ordinance that is issued in 1990 has required the responsible party to be the property owner of the project, a government entity, or other legally established entity, such as a homeowner association. It does not impose the responsibility on a homeowner of a single lot unless that homeowner owns all of the lots in that development. So the responsible party should not be a single homeowner. The Model Stormwater Control Ordinance stated that an individual owner of a single lot in a development cannot be responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater management system of an entire development. The responsible party must be a homeowners association or similar permanent entity. We'll take a look at some examples of this a little later on in this presentation, so do keep this in mind. Well, then what are the permit requirements regarding maintenance of stormwater BMPs? As was previously mentioned, the Tier A, public complex, and highway agency permits require that the permittee ensure that adequate cleaning, long-term operation, and maintenance of BMPs take place. Under the Municipal Post-Construction Stormwater Management Program, you can start with an inspection program that includes notification of the responsible parties. A municipality can opt to enact penalty provisions into its ordinances as a step towards enforcing compliance. Or they can even create a licensing program to offset inspection costs. The permit requirements for ensuring long-term cleaning, operation, and maintenance provided are divided into two classes based on ownership or operational status for the Tier A, public complex, and highway agency permit. The first group is facilities owned and operated by a municipality. They can be, for example, a town hall or some sort of library complex. The four elements required for this group are shown here, and they may be found in Part 4, Section C1 of the Tier A permit, Section C3 for the public complex permit, and Section C2 for the highway agency permit. Inspection and maintenance must follow the plans or be performed more frequently than logbook needs to be maintained to show compliance with this section. If you're looking for more specifics, there are more details of this in the permit, which you can read about further. Continuing on, the permittee also must certify annually that these facilities are properly functioning. And lastly, improper functioning facilities where repairs were not made must be documented and prioritized, so a schedule must be maintained. The permit citations are in parentheses for the Tier A, public complex, and highway agency permits respectively. The second group consists of those facilities not owned or operated by the municipality. Examples of this can include a retail complex or even a housing development. The permit requirements are found in Part 4, Section C for facilities not owned or operated by the permittee. This is not a new requirement, and the way it is now written is to clarify what has been previously required. The permittee is required to ensure maintenance is performed according to the plan, or even more frequently than the plan states. And as earlier stated, a logbook must be maintained of the actions taken to enforce compliance, and these details are required. Again, for more information on this subject, please refer to your respective permit. Compliance with the permit requirement to ensure long-term cleaning, operation, and maintenance starts with the reviewer assessing the plans. Otherwise, the BMP may not even function as intended, or its performance may decline. Approving a weak maintenance plan creates potential problems for the permittee to enforce the performance of maintenance, and it may even lead to the possibility of a permit violation. The review is a key element to ensuring long-term operation and maintenance. For reference, the SCO includes the detailed requirements for a maintenance plan, and these are also found in the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8. The NJDEP BMP manual will even include further details if you want further reference. If you're using the review checklist from the Tier A guidance document, the maintenance portion starts at the bottom of page 17. These are crop snapshots from the 2 pages just to get the information into a single page here. Section C here applies to Tier A, public complex, and highway agency permits. Before the end of the presentation, I will also show some of the other documents available online that can assist you in the review of the maintenance plan for a project. There is also more information in Chapter 4.1 of the Tier A guidance document for stormwater facilities maintenance. This is part of the table from that chapter that lists the implementation schedule for these minimum standards for a Tier A MS4. Another part listing more of the minimum standards. I'm not going to read these to you, but they're certainly there to assist reviewers. And the final part with more minimum standards. The permit language is very similar for public complexes and highway agencies. We just do not have a prepared guidance document for them right here. So if you want to put things in perspective, an inadequate review can really wreck things. The duties of these 3 parties that you see here on this slide, they have to mesh together. So not requiring the details of the maintenance plan can push the burden onto the stormwater coordinator or the DPW facilities maintenance office, or it can even create an issue for the DEP enforcement. So here's an example of a judgment issued against a municipality and the responsible party for not enforcing the stormwater management plan that was approved by the municipality. A lot of complaints were made because maintenance on an infiltration basin was not being properly performed, and this led to basic clogging, odors, and flooding of a neighbor, which is something that we really want to avoid happening here. Since we would like to avoid such legal issues, let's talk about what should be in a maintenance plan so that we know what to look for when we review one. So I'm going to start with general information, show some examples of what a maintenance plan should not look like, and then we'll get into more specifics. So the rules specify the maintenance plan must include details for the design shown on the construction plans, a list of tasks and the schedule for performing them, plus any type of cost estimates are required. The name and contact information for the responsible party must be clearly shown. This person, or even the party, must perform both types of maintenance. So let's review what falls under preventative versus corrective maintenance. The first type of maintenance is preventative, which is the regular tasks that keep a BMP functioning as it was intended to be. So this can involve quarterly inspections. It can involve grass cutting wherever it's appropriate. It can involve trash clearing, replacing vegetation that's failing to thrive, and it can even involve snow removal. Corrective actions are those that may be needed should failure start to occur, such as a periodic replacement of the sand bed and a sand filter. Or it could even be in response to a major event, such as a major rainstorm, a drought, a car accident, or even a high wind event, just to name a few. The plan must require that a logbook of all maintenance activities be kept so that the inspection can confirm that this is being done. The inspection records must be reviewed annually. They might even give clues that something is starting to fail or not even work properly. The review should confirm that an annual evaluation of the plan is specified, and then during the inspection, the permittee should confirm that this is taking place. Chapter 8 of the BMP manual focuses on maintenance, in particular, page 2. On page 3 are other items for consideration and the procedures that must be followed. Retrofitting information can be found on the next page of chapter 8 as well, so you could take a further look into that over there. Chapters 9, 10, and 11 includes specific maintenance details for each type of BMP. So, for example, there are specific maintenance tasks associated with a small-scale bioretention system. You would have biweekly inspections and perimeter grass mowings, just to name a few. Another example is if you're doing GI with plantings, you would need to make sure that they are being watered, especially in the first year when maintenance will be a little higher. I mentioned procedures to be followed. One such procedure is the requirement to record on the deed information about the maintenance plan, and that identifies the responsible party. And this would include the name, the address, and a phone number. The maintenance plan must be recorded with the parcel where the stormwater management measure is located. Any change in the responsible party information due, for example, to a change in property ownership must also be recorded on the deed. The information must also be updated after project construction is completed. Now let's look at some bad examples of maintenance plans. If the stormwater management plan consists of a single sheet or is part of a plan sheet, this is a red flag for the reviewer right away. Remember, the rules do require schedules of the various types of maintenance tasks, an equipment list, and cost information, along with a logbook to record the actions performed. There is no way a complete record can be made on a plan sheet, nor would maintenance staff actually record observations and completed tasks here. So this would be an example of a very weak plan, and therefore the reviewer has the authority to request revisions so that the permittee can comply with the requirements of the permit. Now, imagine you're reviewing a 55-page maintenance plan for a constructed wetland, and you open the table of contents and you see this. Now, you may think, well, they have a 55-page plan, they have preventative procedures, but if you look closely at the headings, A for grass cutting, F mechanical components, and H stormwater detention facility, this will indicate to you that the maintenance plan may not reflect the actual design and require some revisions. What this illustrates is that the reviewer has a responsibility to check the details provided in the plan so that the permittee meets the permit requirement to ensure long-term operation and maintenance. In this case, this is an actual approved maintenance plan that had absolutely nothing to do with the constructed wetland that was shown on the approved plan. So think of it this way. A good maintenance plan is going to contain three essential pieces. It will contain information, it will contain planning, and education. From the maintenance plan, the reviewer and maintenance staff must be able to know what to look for, where the BMPs are, and how to get there, when and how to perform the maintenance tasks, and what training is needed to successfully follow this plan. Under the information section, a complete inventory of the various BMPs should be provided, including the type, the location, and if there are any outfalls. It should be easy to find the water surface elevation for normal conditions as well as the design storms in relationship to visible elements in the BMP. If it stores or attenuates the discharge of stormwater, in this case, the drain down time should also be included. If there is an infiltration component, what is the benchmark permeability rate so that the maintenance staff can check whether the system is failing? And if there is a manufactured treatment device, what is the warranty? You need to also see the owner's manual, and those are just some things you should see with an MTD. The second essential element is planning, which paints a complete picture of what should be done by maintenance personnel. We would not want someone to say, for example, mow a bioretention system with a meadow, thinking it was an overgrown detention basin. Planning includes the schedule of tasks, the tools needed for each task, access information, where sediment or trash is to be taken, and if it requires dewatering, where that is going to occur. If there is an internal component and it is destroyed by, say, a large storm, maintenance tasks or maintenance staff should be able to correctly repair or replace it. I mentioned collected sediment. Planning includes how to transport it and what information, such as a receipt, must be retained. Planning includes the individual costs plus the annual costs for each task. Make sure this information is part of the maintenance plan when you review it. The third element is education. Maintenance staff must be trained on safety measures, inspection methods, the various tasks, and the use of appropriate tools and equipment. Maintenance must also know what to record and where to file the records. Education includes knowing what records to keep. So always keep backup of the records in another location. You may never know if the original records could be destroyed somehow. The permit even requires all approved maintenance plans be kept on file for review by the DEP. Now that the reviewer has checked the maintenance plan for accuracy, it is important to know whom this responsible party should be so that they can be contacted when an issue arises. For a public complex or highway agency, the permittee is the party. Under the Tier A permit, it can be different people or one or more organizations. Obviously, it should be the developer during construction or a public entity where appropriate. Transfer of the responsibility can be to an HOA in a residential development, an owner or a tenant in a non-residential development, another public agency, and only to a single homeowner or tenant in the event that the individual is the sole owner of the entire residential development. If you take a look at NJAC 7:8-5.8C, it actually expressly forbids this. No homeowner can be held responsible for maintaining a basin in a residential development unless they own the entire development. So speaking of which, let's look at some examples of how this can be applied. So here we prepared some scenarios of who the responsible parties should or shouldn't be that you may see when you review a project. So here are two examples. We will read example 1 first. A 5-lot subdivision has one BMP that is collecting stormwater runoff from all 5 lots. This BMP is on one of these 5 lots. Can that lot owner be the responsible party for the maintenance of this BMP? And then example 2, a 5-lot subdivision has 5 BMPs, 1 BMP per lot. They only collect and treat runoff generated from their respective lot. Can the homeowners of each of these lots be the responsible party for each BMP that is in their own lot? So take a couple seconds here, think about that before we review the answer. Okay, so let's take a look at the answer here. And the answer is no. As I stated earlier, an individual homeowner cannot be the responsible party for the BMP located in their own lot or one separate lot unless that homeowner owns all of the lots. And let's look at a third example here. So a development of one lot that doesn't propose any subdivision and is a major development has one singular homeowner. Can this homeowner be responsible for maintenance of a BMP that is proposed for this development? So take a couple seconds and think of the answer for this. All right, so the answer here is going to be yes. Like we said earlier, an individual homeowner can be the responsible party for the BMP located in their own lot if they are the sole owner of the entire development. So the difference between this example and example 1 and 2 is that in this one, the homeowner is the sole owner of the entire development. So that's the big key about this subject. They must own the entire development to be the responsible party. All right, moving on. As we have learned earlier, a good maintenance plan is going to include a lot of information. For this reason, my colleague created various templates for use by a designer. These templates can be customized. They are also created in such a way that they can be used as a teaching tool for reviewers and maintenance inspectors alike. Currently, they are being updated to reflect the new green infrastructure rules. So stay tuned for the updated versions of these templates as they're going to be very useful when you do conduct your reviews. Here is a representative sample of the various templates that could be used in a project. Anyone can go to the department's website, and there you'll click on maintenance guidance. At the top of the page is a brief introductory video, followed by a template of a maintenance plan. And below that is the field manual section. And here is an example of the field manual for a surface infiltration basin. Each BMP should have its own field manual because each of them has different functions and components that need to be inspected and maintained. The field manual templates include the components as shown on the left. They are BMP overview, basic design information, visual aid for stormwater basin inspection, reference documents, inspection checklist / maintenance actions, and then preventative and corrective maintenance records. The designer modifies the contents of the field manual template with the design information of the BMPs incorporated in the development. The reviewer makes sure the information is correct, and the responsible party follows the field manual to perform maintenance. The municipality, depending on the ownership status, then follows the permit requirements to ensure maintenance is performed. The reviewer should also make sure the inspection checklist has been customized to match design features on the construction plan and in the stormwater report. This is a partial screen capture of the infiltration basin inspection checklist log that can be found online in the maintenance guidance section of the Tier A guidance document. Again, these are currently being updated, so stay tuned for the newer versions of them. Another partial screen capture, and this is of the infiltration basin preventative maintenance. Logbooks are also available on the web page for recording both preventative and corrective maintenance tasks performed by field personnel under the heading of maintenance logs and inspection records. These are what the maintenance staff may look at during periodic checkups of the maintenance records. For our municipal reviewers, if a private party applicant is missing logbooks, show them where to find the templates and have them use them to make it easier on the municipal inspectors. So this can all be found at the link at the top. Here is a screenshot of the maintenance webpage. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's very useful, highly recommended by all of us, and it spells things out very, very clearly with detail on what you need to do if you're having trouble and need help, or even if you have questions on what to do. You should be able to find your answers there. There are even links to further training as well as videos that you can take a look at as well on this page. So to sum up, without proper long-term maintenance, the BMPs may not continue to function as designed, resulting in impacts to the environment. The permittee is required to ensure long-term operation, and that maintenance is being performed. A municipality may institute measures to facilitate these efforts. The first step towards meeting this permit requirement is a thorough review of the maintenance plan submitted with a development or redevelopment application. We also reviewed the 3 key elements of the maintenance plan, which are information, planning, and education. And you have all seen where guidance and field manual templates may be found on our website. So again, please use those as a reference if you need help or if you need some answers. So thank you again for your attention. Here's how to contact me. Before I turn it over to Lisa, I want to remind you that you can type out questions through the chat and staff will be getting to them soon. Or you can always email your questions to me if you're more comfortable that way. Short or detailed questions, doesn't matter. And we can give you a more formal answer there. So before I hand it over, I want to confirm with our moderator, Chang Yi, do we have any questions that need to be answered?
We only have one question and answering in the chat, so we may continue the program. I think next one is Lisa. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chang Yi. All right, I will hand it over to Lisa.
Hi guys, my mouse is stuck. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, all righty. So I'm Lisa Schaefer, and all right, the amendments to the stormwater management rules, which are found at NJAC Title 7, Chapter 8, were adopted and published in the New Jersey Register on July 17th of the year 2023. The amendments address one of the major threats that climate change presents, which is specifically increased volume and intensity of rainfall events and the attendant effect of additional runoff on stormwater management systems and flood elevations in riverine areas. So earlier in the overview presentation, Peter covered some of the rainfall data updates and the design and performance standards that are required pursuant to the July 17, 2023 adoption of the rules. So this is a guide as to which subsections of the rules that were amended in Chapter 1 of said rules Let's see, we're going to look at the underlined ones. So just subsections 1.2 and 1.6 had changes within the rule amendments. So let's get to covering those. All right. So we have some new definitions, and then I'm going to clarify some other issues. Then what we're going to look at is the amended applicability section of the rules to better understand various scenarios and which versions of the rules apply to a project. Now, later in the training, all right, not today, but in subsequent modules, the guys will cover the other information that's in the amended rules, and that will include calculations, and that should help put everything into perspective as to what is now required. All right, so in the amended rules, 2 definitions have been added regarding public transportation projects that are subject to the rules in effect prior to this rule adoption. And that will be dependent upon when the public transportation project achieved a specific status. So a public roadway or railroad means a pathway for use by motor vehicles or trains that's intended for public use and is constructed by or on behalf of a public transportation entity. So a public roadway or railroad does not include a roadway or railroad constructed as part of a private development, regardless of whether the roadway or railroad is ultimately to be dedicated to or maintained by a governmental entity. The second definition is public transportation entity. All right, and it means a federal, state, county, or municipal government, an independent state authority, or a statutorily authorized public-private partnership program pursuant to public laws of 2018, shown at this citation, that performs a public roadway or railroad project that includes new construction, expansion, reconstruction, or improvement of a public roadway or railroad. So note that a public transportation entity includes municipalities and counties that perform those public roadway or railroad projects, but does not include the roadway within a private development, even if it's dedicated or to be maintained by the municipalities or counties. Okay, so that's the 2 definitions. Let's move on to the applicability section of the amended rules. So first of all right, the section indicates that all major development that doesn't fall under item B is subject to the rule amendments. So going forward, we will refer to item 1.6B, shown here as air quotes, the legacy provision. Okay. Secondly, a major development project that does not need those permits that are listed in subsection 1.6C, those are the flood hazard area, a freshwater wetlands, a CAFRA, a water development, or a highlands permit from the department, and has submitted an application for the approvals listed in these Romanettes, the little Roman numerals, okay, prior to July 17th of 2023 will not be subject to this rule adoption. A complete application means that the application submitted to the municipality has all of the required documents specified in the municipality's ordinance, and the municipality's reviewer considers the application complete for the review of the stormwater management design. So the application and all accompanying documents shall include the documents for stormwater management. So, all right, if an application does not include recharge calculations, soil testing data, or something that falls under the realm of the design for stormwater management, the legacy provisions that are shown here will not be applicable. Okay. So item 2 on this slide establishes the time frame for a project subject to the rules in effect on March 1st of 2021. And again, it's providing provided that all of the information required is included. All right, similarly, the same goes for item 3, except the rules that we're talking about are those GI rules that went into effect on March 2nd of 2021. And again, those projects are subject to the same conditions regarding the items submitted. All right, so now for item 4, which is for projects submitted to the department. So if major development project needs a flood hazard area, a freshwater wetlands, a CAFRA, a waterfront development, or a highlands permit, and those permit approvals need a stormwater management review component, is technically complete and has been submitted prior to July 17th of 2023, it's subject to either the rules in effect on March 1st of 2021 or the rules that were in effect from March 2nd of 2021 through July 16th of 2023, depending when it was submitted and provided everything required by the department's rules for those permits, plus the application form, were submitted prior to July 17, 2023. Of course, technically complete means that each item included in an application provides sufficient information for the department to declare the application complete for review, public comment, or public hearing. So this is that 1.6C, which are the department permits I mentioned earlier, along with they're found in the New Jersey statutes. Okay, so they're just here in your handouts for reference and moving on. So what's key is that exemptions expire with the expiration, termination, or other loss of duration or effect of either of the qualifying local approval or department permit, whichever comes first. The expiration of local approvals under B1, all right, is governed by local ordinance. Now, in the event that there are multiple qualifying department permits under 1.6C, the expiration date is governed by that permit which expires last, provided that the permit is still in effect. All right, once the exemption expires, the major development shall be subject to all requirements of the chapter upon reapplication for that permit and all subsequent permits or local approvals under municipal land use law. It's a lot. All right, and there's one more citation for limits on these exemptions. Okay, and this part is really important. The exemption is limited to the land area and the scope of the project addressed by the qualifying applications or subsequent approvals. Now, the review agency will consider the impacts from any revision, including but not limited to the items that are listed on this slide, and they may deem the exemption void if the revisions do not have a de minimis impact. All right, an additional legacy provision exists for certain public roadway and railroad projects at NJAC 7:8-1.6F as in Fred. Public transportation entities must demonstrate that the project has determined a preferred alternative or has reached an equivalent milestone prior to the rule adoption. So the logic is that these projects have already undergone a significant level of planning and design such that revising the project now to meet the new rules would be a waste of public funds. Okay, so next we have a bunch of examples to help clarify the applicability portion of the rule adoption. All right, to start things off, I have 2 examples for projects where a department permit is required. So for example 1, a non-residential major development submits an application for the department's Flood Hazard Area Control Act permit with a stormwater review component on August 1st of 2023 and is deemed technically complete. Now, the non-residential major development also submits an application to the township for a preliminary site plan approval on August 1st of 2023, but the township's SCO is still in alignment with the rules in effect prior to July 17th of 2023. So what rules and SCO are applicable to this non-residential development? Okay, so the department reviews the stormwater component of the application under the stormwater management rules that are adopted on July 17th of 2023, the current rules, and the non-residential major development has to design its stormwater management in accordance with the adopted rules. However, the township reviews the stormwater management under its SCO pursuant to the prior rules. Now, the logic here is that since the design complying with the 2023 adopted rules is supposed to be more comprehensive and it has a higher capacity than the design under the prior rules, so the design under the adopted rules should be able to pass the local SCO that was pursuant to the prior rules. Okay. So for the second example, another non-residential major development submits an application for a flood hazard permit with a stormwater review component before June or on June 1st of 2023, and at that time was deemed technically complete. And the development also submits an application to the township for preliminary site plan approval 6 months later on December 1st of 2023. At this time, the township's SCO has been amended to be consistent with the rules adopted on July 17th of 2023. And so now we have to figure out what rules and SCO are applicable to this particular non-residential major development. So the department does its review under the rules in effect up through July 16th of 2023, meaning the prior rules. However, the development will need to redesign its stormwater management to comply with the township's SCO pursuant to the 2023 adopted rules. What this means is that receipt of the department's approval on the stormwater management design does not necessarily secure township approval. The township reviewer applies the township SCO pursuant to the adopted rules of 2023 when reviewing the stormwater management for this non-residential major development. Okay, now I have two examples for when a permit from the department is not required. All right, so another non-residential major development submits an application to the township for preliminary site plan approval on December 1st, 2023, but the township's SCO is still in alignment with the rules in effect prior to the adoption date of July 17th of 2023. So the project will not require any department permits that were in the list under 7:8-1.6C. So is the rule subject to the amended stormwater management rules? Well, the township's going to review the stormwater management under its SCO in effect pursuant to the prior rules, provided the submittal includes all of the required documents prior to the township amending its SCO in accordance with the rule amendment from July 17th of 2023. So pursuant to the requirements of the MS4 permit, the township must still revise its SCO to align with the amended rules and have it be in effect within 1 year of the rule adoption. All right, so that was this past summer. All right, hopefully by now the municipalities are now all in accordance with the rule adoption. All right, so what we have to take away from this is that we have to really look and see if all of the required documents are in the submittal. And we also have to look at when the township amended its SCO. Okay. So for our last example, one more non-residential major development that was submitted to the township for preliminary site plan approval on December 1st of 2023. By this time, the township had amended its SCO to be consistent with the rules adopted on July 17th of 2023, and no permit is required from the department. So do the amended stormwater management rules apply? Yep, the non-residential major development needs to have its stormwater management in compliance with the township's SCO pursuant to the adopted rules. Okay, the township reviewer applies the SCO pursuant to the adopted rules when reviewing the stormwater management. Okay, so reviewers, the takeaway from this is that you need to be aware of the status of the municipal SCO with regard to the rule amendments and looking at all of, the submittal requirements so that you can figure out some of these. But you also have to keep in mind the exemption language that I covered on earlier slides. Okay, so that is really just about all I have for today. So what we covered today were the two definitions that were added and then the applicability to major development. So we have to remember that from our earlier presentations, there's been a change to the allowable calculation methods. Plus, we now have multipliers to be added, applied to the NOAA's published rainfall data. And then we have to make sure we use those multipliers correctly in the calculations for groundwater recharge and stormwater runoff quantity control. The guys are going to cover that more in later presentations. Okay, so this is where you can email us. By now, you should know this email address. You also have mine, which you got the invite, okay? But at this point, I'm going to ask if there are any further questions. Changi?
No.
Okay, guess what? Up next is Anthony, who's going to walk us through taking a quiz, and then we're going to review the answers to quiz number 1. So thanks, everybody. Anthony, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
Let me just pull up the slides here. Okay, everyone. So now it's time to take a brief quiz. My name is Anthony Roblick, and I'm with the Municipal Stormwater Engineering Unit at the DEP. This will be quiz 1, and as was mentioned earlier, there will be a quiz administered at the end of each module, which means there will be a total of 4 quizzes since this course is organized over 4 modules. And the quizzes and the review after we take the quiz are a required part of the course content. So all 4 quizzes must be completed by each attendee who wishes to receive either the certificate of course completion or the CPC credits that we issue. And there are a couple of reasons why we include these quizzes as part of the course. And the main purpose being that they serve as a benchmark to gauge your understanding of the material that we covered. And they also serve as a useful benchmark for us on how well we deliver the course material, especially if the material is new to the course. So with that, let's move on to how to access the quiz. So there are a few ways to navigate to the quiz. The easiest is if you're using a smartphone to access the quiz, you can scan the QR code at the bottom right of the slide. The QR code should also be posted in the Teams chat, so you can look for it there. And that will take you directly to the quiz, which is hosted on SurveyMonkey. If you're not able to use the QR code, you can also access the quiz through the SurveyMonkey URL link that should be posted in the chat and is also located at the bottom of this slide. under where it says Quiz 1. If, however, you wish to access the quiz from our website, there is a link posted there as well. First, you'll navigate to our training webpage at the URL at the top of the slide. That's dep.nj.gov/stormwater/handouts. And then once you get there, scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll notice links to each of the 4 quizzes. And at this time, only quiz 1 will be open for responses. So you'll want to select the quiz 1 link, and that will take you directly to the quiz as well. So once you navigate to quiz 1 through any of those methods that were previously noted, you should be directed to the first page of quiz 1. And the title of the quiz should be what's shown here on the slide. So it should say Fall 2024 Stormwater Training Quiz 1. And here's the QR code again, as well as the SurveyMonkey link. And we'll leave this slide up while you're taking the quiz in case you need to access these links again. This quiz is made up of 17 questions over a few pages, and you must answer every question on a page before being allowed to advance to the next page. And the quiz may only be taken once. And after everyone has taken the quiz, we'll meet back here for review of the correct answers. And right now it's 3:30, and we'll let's allot 15 minutes to take the quiz. So go ahead and take the quiz now, and we'll meet back here around 3:45, 3:46 to review. Thank you.
Anybody there?
Yes.
I can't get to the quiz. I'm on a smartphone.
Lisa, could you assist him?
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
I
Are you able to see the link? Are you able to click the link or to use the QR code?
it's well, the QR code is on my screen, but it just goes to Stormwater Quiz 1.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's the quiz. Yeah. And you click on that quiz one, it will lead you to the SurveyMonkey website and then show you the web page for quiz one.
Well, when I do that, it pops down fall 2024 SWMR module 1. It has 136 attendees, 1 hour 59 minutes, but it won't open up the quiz. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm thinking envision what you see in the
Android.
Let me check that.
And then if I try to go to the HH or the HTTP with the backslashes, it won't open on that either. It won't open the QR code, and it won't open on the other thing.
Okay, let me check.
I know we're connected because we're talking.
Yeah. I'm using my phone to check out the QR code, and I think I can go to. Could you double check that the web page, the title of the web page is in the surveymonkey.com?
Yeah, but I try to go on that and highlight it, and it doesn't do anything.
I think, yeah,
Mr.
Lisa.
Carroll, I'm going to email you the link and you'll be able to click on it from the email. Okay. Just give me 1 second. I want to confirm I have the right email address for you. Okay.
Yep.
All right. We'll get this done.
No problem.
All right.
Should be easy. Your email.
Wait. Why do I not have?
It's Carol Robert 620 or 726 or shit.
Yeah. It's okay.
No,
Hold on.
I gave you my phone
Yeah,
number.
627 at, yeah. Okay.
Uh,
All right. No problem. I'm sending it. I'm going to send you now. All right. Here we
And then
go.
if I leave this channel here, how am I going to go over to review?
Okay, what you're going to do is you'll stay in the meeting, but you have to click on how to get to your email. Do you have icons at the bottom of your screen?
Yeah, but it's all your program.
Well, no, I mean, do you have computer icons that show your email account and things like that, or are you just on a phone?
I'm on the phone.
Okay. All right.
Computer at work.
iPhone?
It's an Android, yeah.
Oh, Android. Okay. You should be able to, well, I have an iPhone, I'm sorry. You should be able to minimize the window and then go to your icon for your email. Okay. I'm going to send it to you and we'll figure this out. I have attendance data for you, but we'll make it work somehow. Okay.
Somehow I'd like to believe you.
All right. All right.
Okay.
And if that doesn't work, tomorrow morning, I guess I'll email you a Word version of the quiz and you'll do it then, okay?
That'd be good, but then the review.
Try this. Yeah, well, you stick around. You need to be on the attendance data for it. And then if you take it in the morning, you'll be like, oh, do I remember this? No, I didn't. It'll reinforce what you learned. Okay?
The review makes me remember stuff, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So just stay on the link or try to find my email now.
Try to find your email. You shouldn't, unless you click leave the meeting, you will not be booted out of Teams, okay?
Okay.
Cole, I'm gonna go look through the analyze and look for your individual responses, okay? I mean, we always have them. It's, let me just find it. Okay. I'm just scrolling through them manually, so they're not in any particular order. Michael Cole, yeah, I have responses for you. Okay. What I'll do is I'll download the data in the morning and I'll look at it. It's harder to scroll through it right now until I can sort it by last name. Okay. Okay. Cindy, I'm seeing responses. I'm just going to look and see if they're all there. Okay. Yep. I see them. Okay. Tomorrow, after I process the quiz data, I'll be drafting up the invite for module 2. Okay, so that will go out before lunchtime tomorrow. And someone that asked, what is the percentage passing? We don't score you individually. We look at the core, the responses to try and figure out where we could have done a better job. Okay, but I think in the app, it should give you personal information.
True or false?
Okay, and so if you're going to miss a module, email me or email the DWQ account so my coworkers can also help me track it, and we'll have you make it up in the spring. Okay, that way you'll be complete for that once you do that final missed module. The invite is that you received today has my email address, and it's lisa.schaefer@dep.nj.gov. So, but you could use the DWQ one so that we can all get involved. But here's my email address.
All right. Thanks, Lisa, for all that info and take care of all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and get started now with the quiz review, just so we can close out by 4 o'clock. So if you're still taking the quiz and you're not finished yet, no need to fret. We'll leave the quiz open for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and start the review now. Okay, and we'll begin with question number 4. So this is asking the 6 minimum measures are required by what type of mandate? And the answer to this is going to be A, federal. And so this is something that was covered in the federal background presentation by Shashi. The NIPD's Phase 2 stormwater regulations require that the 6 minimum measures be implemented for small MS4s. And so this is going to be mandated at the federal level. All right, question 5. Reviewing site plans is required to comply with which statewide basic requirement? The answer to this is going to be C, post-construction stormwater management. And so it's part of the statewide basic requirements that the permittee develop, update, implement, and enforce its stormwater management program to address stormwater runoff from both new development and redevelopment. Okay, question 6. Who is responsible for enforcing the post-construction stormwater management program? And the answer to this is D, the MS4 permittee. So as this is a requirement of the MS4 permit, it's going to be the responsibility of the MS4 permittee to enforce the post-construction stormwater management program. All right, moving on to question 7. What is the definition of a major development under the Municipal Stormwater Control Ordinance? And the answer to this is B, all development projects that result in land disturbance of 1 acre or more, and any additional development defined as major development by municipality's stormwater control ordinance. So this is pursuant to New Jersey Administrative Code 7:8-4.2 for the purposes of a municipal stormwater management plan and elements, which include the SEO. Major development is limited to projects that ultimately disturb 1 or more acres of land. However, the municipality may adopt a more stringent definition of major development to align with our definition at 7:8-1.2. Right, question 8. Which of these can be used to demonstrate compliance with the water quantity design and performance standard? And the answer to this is B. Design stormwater management measures so that the post-construction peak runoff rates for the current and projected 2, 10, and 100-year design storms are 50, 75, and 80% respectively of the pre-construction peak runoff rates. And this was something that was covered in the stormwater overview presentation. Okay, question 9. Which of the following is the New Jersey water quality design storm? And the answer to this is A, 1 1/4 inches in 2 hours. So the NJ water quality design storm is a storm event with a variable intensity that results in 1 1/4 inches of rainfall over a 2-hour period. And that's defined in the stormwater management rules. All right, question 10. Which of the following would meet the groundwater recharge standard? And the answer to this is going to be D, all of the above. So a major development has the option of infiltrating the increase in the projected 2-year design storm runoff volume or maintaining the average annual groundwater recharge. And we have
Hello?
the, hello?
Hey, Anthony, I got a quick question. On my quiz, it marked it wrong.
For D, all of the above?
Yes.
Lisa,
Oh, I'm
do you
sorry.
want to?
I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the wrong one. My mistake. Sorry, Anthony.
Okay, okay. All right. So we'll
Go ahead.
Can-
I was
Okay.
looking at the question in the chat about question 8, so that's why I was delayed. Keep moving on.
Okay, so what I was going to say was we have the NJ groundwater recharge spreadsheet to meet the maintain the average annual groundwater recharge requirement. And then I was just going to go on to say that the exception is if a site is within the urban redevelopment area, planning area 1, and is either fully developed or portions of the site are fully developed, then the groundwater recharge requirement would not be applicable to those portions of the site. All right, moving on to question number 11, which is a true or false. A project located in a tidal flood hazard area is always exempt from the water quantity standard. And the answer is false. So in tidal flood hazard areas, the water quantity standard does not apply only if the applicant can demonstrate that the increased volume of stormwater runoff will not increase flood damage below the point of discharge. So there must be a demonstration through a hydrologic and hydraulic analysis that the increased volume, the change in timing, the increased rate of runoff, or a combination of those will not result in additional flood damage below the point of discharge. And the only time when that analysis would not be required is if the discharge is directly into the ocean or a bay, inlet, or reach of any water course between its confluence with one of those water bodies and the first water control structure. All right, moving on to question 12, true or false. BMPs from table 5-2 can be used to meet stormwater quality requirements without obtaining a waiver or variance from NJAC 7:8-5.3. And that's the GI standard. And the answer to that is B, false. So a waiver or variance is required in order to use BMPs from table 5-2 for stormwater runoff quality or groundwater recharge. BMPs from table 5.2 may only be used to meet the stormwater runoff quantity requirement without a waiver or variance. Okay, question 13 is another true or false. A gravel area used for vehicle parking during events that are regularly held should be considered a motor vehicle surface. And the answer to this is true. So a surface that is intended to be used by motor vehicles beyond an emergency situation should be considered as part of the total regulated motor vehicle surface. However, if a surface does not allow for motor vehicle use outside of an emergency, then the review agency may determine that the area can be excluded from the total regulated motor vehicle surface. Okay, question 14, which of the following is required in a maintenance plan? And the answer to this is going to be D, all of the above. So this was covered in the maintenance presentation. The maintenance plan must include preventative and corrective maintenance tasks specific to the BMPs used on site, the name, address, and phone number of the responsible party, and it must also include cost estimates for the maintenance tasks as well. All right, question 15. Which of the following cannot be the responsible party for maintenance of a stormwater BMP? And the answer to this is going to be D, a homeowner that owns only one home in a large residential development. And so the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8-5.8C state that responsibility for maintenance shall not be assigned or transferred to the owner or tenant of an individual property in a residential development or project, unless it's the rare case where the owner or tenant owns or leases the entire residential development or project. All right, question 16. At a minimum, how often is the responsible party required to evaluate the effectiveness of the maintenance plan? And the answer to this is going to be C, 1 year. So the stormwater management rules state that the responsible party must evaluate the effectiveness of the maintenance plan at least once per year and adjust the plan as needed. All right, and this is our last question, true or false. All maintenance plans for stormwater management measures must be recorded on the deed of record for each property on which the maintenance must be undertaken if the responsible party is not a public agency. And the answer to this is true. So this is in the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8-5.8D. And the state states that if the person responsible for maintenance is not a public agency, then the maintenance plan and any future revisions shall be recorded upon the deed of record for each property on which the maintenance must be undertaken. Okay, so that concludes the Quiz 1 review. Thank you for your attention. I will go ahead and turn this back over to our moderator for any closing comments.
Thank you, Anthony. I don't see any question that I haven't answered. So I think that concludes our today's module. And for the module 2, separate invites will be sent out to you on Wednesday. Thank you very much.